Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Knights of the Storm. And I will be your host today, Ashley. And with me, I have the Knights of the Round Table, Karen Carpenter. Hello, Karen. How are we today?
Hello, Ashley. Great to see you as always, and to Jason and everybody in the chat. We have a lot to cover today, and I think it'll be interesting and fun.
I agree. We do have a lot to cover. Our other co host, Mr. Jason Barker. Hey, Jason. You muted.
Yeah, I did that to stop the echo, but I apologize. I had the wrong intro loaded. I was playing around with the studio last night, so I will try to fix that before we close out for the proper outro. But yeah, doing good today. Good to be here.
All right, good. Yes, we find ourselves in crazy times. And just for posterity's sake, today is Saturday, March 28th, 2026. I know that Jason likes to give the date, and I am trying to continue in that tradition. And just in case you have to be, or you happen to be listening and you wonder when this was recorded, well, now you know. Okay. So we do have a verse of the week before we get into everything. So I'm going to go ahead and have Jason run us through that. We will review and then we will get into it.
All right, verse of the week, and I don't have my screen ready to share for some reason. I'm just going to read it, okay? This comes from Ecclesiastes 4:9-12. We've actually used this before. I actually did this up and realized that we have used it before. But Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9-12 says, "Two are better than one because they have good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift his fellow. But woe to him that's alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and threefold cord is not quickly broken." So, to me, this is just kind of like where we're at today. We have to lean on each other. Lean on me when you're not strong, right? I've had a lot of support lately. We've gone through some trying times. Everyone's going through trying times. And Ashley calls me, Karen calls me, Tiger calls me, Levi calls me. I talk with Billy. I talk with Tony. Having friends, even though we live in a digital space where we've been isolated, like severely isolated after COVID, especially, however you can maintain contact and uplift each other, two is better than one. Don't go it alone. I know a lot of people are talking about prepping and I'm gonna hunker down in my hole and all this other stuff. And I understand that may come to that at some point if this doomsday stuff works out the way it does. But and be careful not to let people know what you have, but keep those connections is what I'm saying. And let's lift each other up in spirit and in whatever we need to do. Like you need to provide something for someone and they provide you with something. I think we really need to start building those relationships again, like we did pre-COVID. That's all I got, Ash.
Okay. I think that's very important in the times that we find ourselves. So before I comment on that, I want to hear what Karen has to say.
I have to say, Matthew 18, verse 20, for where two or three gather in my name, there I am with them. Emphasizing that Jesus is present, supporting and empowering small groups of believers who gather together in unity. So I don't, even if you take out the prayer part or the religious part, I think that that's absolutely the essence of what makes us strong as humans is community, connections, interdependence, division of labor. The family is a family unit for a reason, because many hands make light work. So you said it well, Jason, and I think people understand that we truly do need to work together to get through this and to get through everything. In hard times and in good times, everything's better when you share it. So that's what I have to say about that.
Very well said. And I very much agree with that. And I think this is one of the things that we talk about quite often, which is how we can see an intentional division narrative or an intentional division taking place. And that is with getting this very polarized world that we live in where people can just assume everything about you based on what you think on one issue. And we definitely saw this during the pandemic times where, family was against family, neighbors, all these things. So that division is definitely there. This is something that I talk about quite a bit, is that our friends, family, neighbors are not our enemies. I think that we need to look a little bit further up the pyramid to find out who is actively working against us and intentionally trying to sabotage relationships that we have, because we do need each other. And so I do think it's very important. And that was going to be one of the things that we'll get to later when we talk about what I have brought today, but that it may be something for us depending on how far you are in maybe your prepping journey, or however you want to describe that, for however you may be bracing yourself for what is potentially coming, that maybe we can create a checklist together. So today I reached out to a local beef farmer. Today I went to my farmer's market, or today I ordered some potatoes and I watched a tutorial on how to grow some taters, because we know that potatoes can keep us alive. So things like that, we can maybe talk a little bit more about that as the episode progresses. But I absolutely think it's a very important message right now that we do need each other. And of course, we find ourselves in, well, I don't know, very trying times. And a lot of us are very concerned about what we see taking place. And so we are going to be getting into that. But in the meantime, one of the things that we've talked about on this show is the role that technology has played in our day-to-day lives. So that is with screen time, that is with capturing our attention, that is with getting us into this digital world. And obviously, we can see it the most in children who often can be addicted to their screens. They spend a lot of time on screens because it obviously captures their attention intentionally. So with a story about that, and that's the other thing that I want to remind people is, even though we definitely have a high level of things that we're going to get into that are taking place that are very important, there's still much more happening in our landscape currently. So with a story regarding that, something that is very important, Karen.
My screen should be ready to share.
Okay.
There we go. There are several lawsuits that are in the works, and some have been settled. And this is a landmark lawsuit. I've been keeping an eye on. It was in Los Angeles. Tech giants who designed Instagram and YouTube to addict kids, and they were found guilty of doing that to addict kids. Will anything change after the landmark jury decision? This is from Children's Health Defense, but this is in the mainstream news. It's a widespread, widely available if anybody wants to look further into it. A jury awarded $6 million in damages after finding that Meta and Google designed Instagram and YouTube to addict young users. The first of its kind case could open the door to thousands of similar lawsuits. Will the ruling change how courts view social media design and harms it causes? And I'll move down the article a little bit. Social media platforms Instagram and YouTube have a design defect, which means they are addictive, a jury in the United States has ruled. And of course, we would argue it wasn't a defect, it was intentional. And that's what the evidence showed, which is why they were found guilty, why the verdict was in their favor, because there is evidence that shows it's addictive intentionally. And we are well aware of that here. And those of us, our viewers, are generally aware of the fact that this tech has all been used as a weapon against us intentionally, and absolutely is designed to keep our attention, keep feeding our little hits of dopamine to us. They very well looked at our physiology and neurology, psychology, and it kind of reminds a lot of people of tobacco science and the way that the science of tobacco and the way that our bodies work and our minds work were used to addict people to tobacco. And we see that with food, big food and junk food also, and then also with technology. It's very well known. They know how to work us, and they are doing that. So, Los Angeles jury took nearly 9 days to reach its verdict in a landmark case brought by a woman known as KGM against social media platforms. It awarded $3 million in damages, with Meta owner of Instagram, being 70% responsible, and Google, owner of YouTube, being 30% responsible. The jury later awarded a further $3 million in punitive damages. Both TikTok and Snapchat settled on confidential terms before the 6-week trial commenced. This is Meta's second big loss in the U.S. courts this week, with a New Mexico jury finding the company guilty on March 24th of concealing information about the risks of child sexual exploitation and the harmful effects of its platforms on children's mental health. So that's a big deal. KGM's case is the first of its kind, but won't be the last. It is one of more than 20 bellwether trials due to go to court soon. These are essentially test cases used to gauge juries' reactions and set legal precedent. As such, the verdict is set to have far-reaching ripple effects. It could take big tech's, it could be big tech's big tobacco moment, with thousands of more similar cases waiting in the wings. These machines are designed to addict. KGM is now a 20-year-old, says she was using YouTube at age 6, Instagram at age 9, and allegedly developed compulsive use patterns, including up to 16 hours a day in a single day on Instagram. The platform's design features, she argued, contributed to her anxiety, depression, body dysmorphia, and suicidal ideation. Her case argued that Meta and YouTube made deliberate design choices, for example, infinite scroll, to make their platforms more addictive to children in order to boost profits. It alleged the companies borrowed heavily from the behavioral and neurobiological techniques. I'm going to start that sentence again. It alleged the companies borrowed heavily from the behavioral and neurobiological techniques used by poker machines and exploited by the cigarette industry to maximize youth engagement and drive advertising revenue. These company-built machines designed to addict the brains of children, KGM's lawyer Mark Lanier told jurors, and they did it on purpose. Lanier cited an internal Meta study called Project MIST, MYST. This allegedly found that children who had experienced adverse effects were most likely to get addicted to Instagram, and that parents were powerless to stop the addiction. Lanier said the moment KGM was locked into the machine, her mom was locked out. So I'll stop there. There's a video, the plaintiffs making the statement in front of the courthouse, and so I think this is something we that's worth keeping an eye on, and it is some good news.
So we definitely have some interesting thoughts and things that I want to bring in from the chat, but before we do that, Jason, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was looking at the chat comments, and there's a lot of keen people in there, and we can now put the comments on screen from Rumble, so that's great because that's where our audience is. And I'll go over a couple of those if I can, Ashley. Some thoughts?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so Guard says, and Guard's he's a libertarian dude, so he looks at things very critically from an not a left or right perspective. He says that verdict was terrible verdict, and and it's up to parents to allow their children online or not allow their children online. Utterly bogus. Harp says, I think I did the wrong one. This is where I agree with Harps. All done to bring in digital ID for internet use. Now that's the double-edged sword. That was the other comment that I flagged the wrong one. I'll stop with that. But yeah, I looking at these apps, and we've known this for a long time. Look at the colors they use. Number one, they are addictive. Okay, and being again going back to the COVID lockdowns, they pushed people into their hidey hole with a screen in front of them. That's what kids know now. They don't know going playing on the playground and riding their bikes in the streets or whatnot. Don't do that, kids. Ride on the sidewalk. Okay, even if you get a ticket, don't ride in the streets. But anyway, the social interaction now, the norm is to do it via screen. You can see kids sitting. Quick story. Sidebar, quick story. I was chaperoning my daughter when she was in high school. I was chaperoning a trip to go do a hike up a mountain. The whole class was going, and there was 3 or 4 of us adults that went with for safety reasons and chaperone purposes. And as we were waiting in the gym before the buses were prepped and pulled around for us to load up on, they were all sitting along the cinder block wall there on their phones, and literally one girl sitting next to another girl, and they're texting back and forth instead of talking. I watched this happen in real time, and I see my daughters do this sitting on the couch. They're texting with each other next to each other instead of talking. So these apps definitely are designed to get you sucked into that. And then if you look at the color choice of everything being blue, blue is a color that keeps you awake. This is another problem we have. Facebook has done this. Twitter's done this. That blue stimulates your brain from the time that we were crawled out of the primordial ooze, if you believe in that. We're stimulated to wake up and be alert when we see the blue, because the sun comes up and the sky turns blue. When it turns red, that starts promoting the what do you call that, Karen? The
circadian rhythm.
The what?
It starts. I mean, our circadian.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, the circadian rhythm is a cycle, and it is responsive to
melatonin,
light
also.
colors.
Melatonin. That's what I meant. Melatonin. Yeah. So it stimulates the brain to produce that, so that you can go to sleep. So, and they actually have, every phone has it. If you look at it, they have a nighttime filter that will cut the blue light out. But kids don't know that. People don't know that. And you're supposed to stop doing that a couple hours before bedtime to get rid of that blue light, so that your brain can prepare you to sleep, and then you get proper sleep, which there's a lot of stuff I can get into all day long on healing, both physically and mentally healing through your REM cycles, your deep sleep, your light sleep, and your REM cycles. That's required for you to stay healthy mentally and physically. And if you can't get proper sleep, that can't happen. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there. I know that's kind of like going really off the rails, but yeah, totally designed to do that. I read about that, and back to the chat's point, this could be used as a double-edged sword, as Harp said, to implement a child ID or a universal ID or something like that. And David Knight has talked about that as well with operating systems. Now they're going to get rid of open source stuff that doesn't verify who you are. And I have stuff on that if we get to it. We probably won't, but that's all I have. I'm sorry to be long-winded, Ashley.
No worries. Yes. And I think that I like what we have in the chat, because I think that there's room for discussion on this topic. Now, from the anarchist or the very libertarian perspective, I don't disagree that it's the parents' responsibility and not the government's responsibility. However, I also think that the point could be made that the government and tech companies and intelligence is who made the internet to begin with, and they had all of this information, and they did it knowingly, and parents were not educated on that. And even if you wanted to make the point, well, it was in terms of service. Have you looked at terms of service lately? It is quite an insane amount of text for people to do that. And the other thing that the point that I want to make regarding this is that we see things happening in incremental steps, incrementalism, or things that can be completely changed within an entire generation, that 15 to 20 years that we hear about. And what that is getting acceptance of everyone having a cell phone, and then everyone has a smartphone. And we see the evolution until it's very widely accepted, and all kids have it and all people have it. And I don't disagree that it is the parents' responsibility to do that. It's also the parents' responsibility to be educated on medical decisions. But we have seen how people have been very co-opted in a lot of different ways. And I'm not trying to shirk the responsibility from people. And this is something that Karen has talked about that her daughter is trying to do, is to minimize exposure to these types of things. And I think that that is really where a movement could be more well spent, in educating people, and hopefully they would be willing to receive it. I do agree that that is their responsibility as parents to do that. But I also don't want to leave out a lot of the other factors in day-to-day life of people being really busy, really overwhelmed, and really unhealthy, intentionally so. And that is mentally, physically, spiritually. That is what we have going on. So I'm not making excuses for anyone, but what I'm saying is that I think these things are challenging as parents in today's day and time. And if you are a parent who sends your child to school, all of their peers have phones. So the school should be responsible for regulating phone use for kids. And then the other thing is that they're exposed to tech all day long in school. They use, I don't know, smart board. I don't know. I was in school a very long time ago, but
They're issuing was it Chromebooks to kids going back almost 15 years now.
May I
And then
comment
the
eventually?
parents are on the hook for that. If
I'm
the kid
sorry, there's a
breaks
lot
the
of delay. I
Chrome,
can't hear.
if the kid breaks the Chromebook, the parents have to pay for it. I thought it was a bad idea when it happened, but you're right. Ashley, they have exposed kids to all this, and there is the peer pressure aspect, really huge one. It started with just having an iPod, and then now it's a phone, and now it's a laptop, and it's like a special request to have your kids have books now in certain schools.
right.
So
Karen, thoughts?
Okay, thank you. I read the article, but I didn't really say much about it. And I agree that there are some very valid points from many perspectives. I think awareness is key. I'm glad to see some awareness being brought to this and some admissions being made as to the intentionality of this. There was a documentary several years ago. I think it was called Social Dilemma, that was very well done, that went into this as well. And we know the frog has been boiled for a very long time. And it's a real challenge that screen time does rewire the brains of children. And it's good to see more people aware of that. I'm very concerned about what's going on in schools because, first of all, Wi-Fi is being used in schools. There are cell phone towers right over schools, and we're starting to see more cancer clusters and things in schools, and that are most likely the result of having so much Wi-Fi that children are just frying in Wi-Fi. And as far as I understand it, knowing some kids that are in school at this point, public school, which of course I wouldn't advise, but that's the reality, that they do have their own Chromebooks that they take to and from school. They're expected, if they homeschool, they're expected to log in every day, do everything on a Chromebook that's assigned to them. Tremendous amounts of money are spent on that tech for students. But you are also starting to see schools that are confiscating phones at the beginning of the day and passing them out at the end of the day, which is also, I think, a positive step forward. So I just want people to take personal responsibility and to be aware of the ins and outs and the dangers. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Ashley.
Yes, and I agree with that. And my main thing is that I think this is a nuanced conversation. We have a lot of threads happening here. So we do have this the case that you're talking about, Karen, and then being found accountable. And I agree 1000%. The other thing that we have is that people are saying it's a slippery slope because this could be the digital ID, and I don't disagree with that either. I think there's going to be pushes in a lot of different ways for people to have a digital ID, whether it comes from this or whatever. And then the other thing is that I want to have some compassion, because I think that it is very tempting to have a very harsh judgment on parents and public schools and things like this in today's day and time. And I know that all of us are very aware of these things, but we have real people in our lives who need to send their kids to public schools, and they're not horrible people for doing that. And people allowing their child to have a cell phone when everyone else does either does not make them a horrible person. I wish that they were more aware of this, and I hope that we can cultivate that, like what we're talking about here with with awareness. But this is predatory. That's the bottom line. Whatever the fallout, whatever the threads, this is a predatory practice to get children addicted to screens. And they have done it to us as well. And we know the efforts to work on population control, controlling people's behavior, creating dialectics. That has been happening for a very long time. We know that. So I just want to say that there's nuance. There's a lot to be discussed in this conversation here. And I hope that we can cultivate some awareness and get some other people to, to try to limit and manage screen time and things like that. So yeah, and that was one thing that I wanted to mention is in predatory practices. For example, when we saw the 2008 mortgage crisis, there was a lot of rumblings about predatory lending, and there was a lot of people that felt very good on their high horse, condemning those who had been victims of predatory lending. But I think that while, yes, personal responsibility is there, we also know that these people run the show when it comes to financing. And so if you have not been educated, for example, on that, if you didn't come from a household that was very that was very focused on educating you on financial wellness and how to manage debt in a healthy way and not to spend more than you're bringing home, things like that, then it would have been very easy for somebody when they're giving away free money to think, yeah, I can do this. I can handle a 5-year adjustable rate mortgage. And so yes, there is personal accountability in that, but there's also predatory practices that we need to be aware of and understand that other people are exposed to that. And being vulnerable does not make you a horrible person. And the other thing is that we all have made bad decisions in our lives, even with our best efforts to continue to learn from that and improve. So I just think that's a nuanced conversation. And yeah, the digital ID is coming regardless. I agree with that. And I think that there is going to be many different efforts to get us into that digital world via ID. And that's part of getting people addicted, right? Because whenever you feel like this is how I get my news, this is how I keep up with so and so down the street, this is how I watch the crime in my neighborhood or whatever that is, like there's a million different ways that they're approaching this, and oftentimes it is in the name of children's safety. And yes, I have a comment that there are great people that care at public schools. And this is something that Karen and I have talked about. Karen spent her entire career in public school as an educator. And that does not mean that Karen was some predator part of the system. Karen had a father who was also in public education. And they do that because they loved the kids and they loved communicating and interacting with them and doing things. So not that there are not valid critiques. And I know that, and I want to let Karen chime in on this, but in that system, but we also, I think it's very easy for us to get into a black and white state or say, like, you shouldn't send your kids to public school, or, well, sometimes people need to. And there are people in public schools who really care about the children, and they're doing what they can in the environment that we find ourselves in. Now, if you happen to be somebody who broke out and you're homeschooling your kids, I think that's amazing. And I know that that requires sacrifice, and it's not easy to do that either. And of course, you all know I'm an advocate for that. But anyway, I went on a tangent. So let's throw it over to Karen and see what Karen says.
Well, Deb, my dear friend, is saying it's shoveling a grain of sand against the beach, a whole beach. That's true, but I think many of us at this point in our lives are doing the best we can to keep shoveling that sand against the whole beach in many different areas, and that's one of them. And I made that choice before I realized the foibles and the motives behind the system, but it also got worse every single year. The autonomy that I had to use my judgment, my background, my insights and experience with what I thought was best for kids, the best way to reach them and teach them and help them enjoy being there and meet their needs at the, what they each individually needed. Each year, more of that was taken away from me, and it got to be absolute nightmare. The amount of stress being a public teacher, I cannot even begin to communicate the amount of stress that I went through. And it got worse every single year. But I was there for the right reasons. That is true. I mean, of course, I needed the paycheck and was glad to have it, but I also spent quite a bit of money every month, probably $100 every month at least, on things for the classroom because I was expected to. If I didn't have nice pretty things and crafts, I bought all kinds of craft materials, crayons, pencils, markers, scissors, pencil boxes, glue, rewards, treats, you name it, clothes for kids that didn't, groceries for kids, visit them in the hospital, took them gifts in the hospital. I did all that because I loved the kids and I cared about them. So I understand it's fighting up against the stream, but what else are we going to do? We have to fight the good fight where we find ourselves, I think. And I know I made a difference in kids' life. I know I did. They tell me. I still know some of them, and they have good memories from that time in their life. So I think that's a treasure. And I wanted to also mention that Deb and Brian had a bank hack. The whole bank, apparently, all of the accounts were hacked and spoofed, and they actually did have money taken, quite a bit, over $1,000, and that she feels that that is also a move toward the digital ID and more positive identification. So I think we're seeing that coming at us on in many levels, and we've seen about the cyber pandemics being warned about and things. So a bank hack actually happened to some of our friends here last night. So thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for speaking on that because as I had mentioned before, I want us to, something that we talk about quite a bit is the war on empathy and the war on each other. And I think that if we can cultivate a little bit of understanding and realize that there's a lot of nuance and that perhaps that can help us cultivate and craft our message and plant those seeds when we have an opportunity, and also stop seeing our friends, neighbors as the enemy, because there's a lot of factors at play that have gotten us to where we're at today. And before we move on from that, I did want to check back in with Jason and get his thoughts on this.
So yeah, real quick on the bank hack thing. My aunt worked for Chase for maybe 20 years, almost 20 years, maybe more. And she had told me, we talked about this a couple of years ago. She said all this getting hacked nonsense is BS. It's complete BS. She says part of their training was that, like, I want to say it was around 95%, but I'll just say it was over 90% of these identity theft things that occur, which it does happen. But she says it happens by disgruntled employees who had horrible working conditions, working from home, on the telephone, working for the bank or whatever. And they had had access to all these people's information, and they just jotted it down. And then when they quit, they went and robbed them for some money to get by or whatever. And I do want to share this one thing. It's kind of a side trail, but not much of one. It's just one screenshot. All right. Is that cool, Ashley? This happened to me yesterday, as a matter of fact. So I'm trying to cash in this $250 rewards card that I was promised, a $250 gift card when I signed up for my fiber that I now have here at the home. So I got better internet. Well, it comes in the way of this, and this dovetails on the universal ID, the digital everything, biometrics, everything. So I go to get this $250 card, and they keep emailing me about it. And this is what it tells me. It says, oh, shopping online just got better, whatever. So this is how I have to get my $250 they promised me. I have to register my card, click the add to wallet button, which means now I have to go set up a digital wallet. I clicked on that, and it gave me a QR code. So it's pushing me to use my phone to get this $250 they promised me. The other option, open a preferred mobile wallet, click add card, and enter, so I went through all this stuff. I didn't do the digital wallet thing. I found another way. It took me like literally 3 hours. So I'm not even getting paid minimum wage here at this point, right? Like for some people, minimum wage might be $50 an hour if you live like in San Francisco. But anyway, I spent all this time, and then it made me make an account, and I'm like, you have my information. I signed up for the internet. You know where to send the bill. You know all this other stuff. Why do you need my information again? Because it's a third party. It's a third party that wanted my information and had to agree to the terms of service. I have no idea what I agreed to. There was like 5 million pages of little tiny print to read. So anyway, at the end of the day, I came right back around to the same thing where I needed a digital wallet. And I don't do the digital crap. I want to hold it in my hand, even if it's cash. I know cash is fiat, whatever. But eventually I did find a place, a little tiny little link I can click on where it says, send me a freaking physical plastic card so that I can use that. And what I'm going to use it for is to buy a wolf pack. I'm going to buy a wolf pack with it, but I need to have the numbers on it. If you notice, let me put that back up on the screen again. All the numbers on this digital card are starred out. No, there's no CCV, or there's no expiration date. There's no nothing. So they are subtly in every which way possible trying to move us into a digital ID and digital currency. That's what I'm seeing very subtly. And they use, this is a carrot right here. This is the carrot. What's going to happen is when you have to pay your property tax this way, that's going to be the stick. But I just wanted to throw that in there, and I'll leave it at that. I know that was an extra additional thing. I did have it prepared to talk about, so perfect timing on it.
Okay, very good. So I think that we covered that well. I think that we had a a good conversation and have several things to think about, talk about. We had some good input from the chat, and thank you for sharing that article, Karen. I do think that it's important and it matters. It's very topical to what we see taking place today. So, and we do have several items from Jason. Not sure that we can hit everything, but why don't you kick us off, Jason, with what you wanted to bring and what you consider your top priority from your stack.
Well, I wanted to talk about the U.S. Mint minting a Trump gold coin, but since we're on the topic of tech right now, I'd rather do this to bounce off of Karen's topic. Let me go ahead and play something real quick for you, if I can find the right one. Oh my gosh, here we go. Karen will love this.
Sometimes when I'm down and all alone, all I ever need is you. Winners come and they go, and we watch the melting snow. So as summer follows spring, all the things you do give me a reason to build my world around you. Come and follow rainbows, I am sure.
The most powerful iPad ever is also the thinnest.
All I ever need is you.
Muted, you're muted, you're muted.
Dang it. I keep forgetting I have a hotkey for that. All right. So for those listening on audio later, what that was the Apple Crush video, which was a very controversial video. And it's where they have all the different art stuff, pianos, musical instruments, paint, stuff like that being smashed. And when they come back, when the press comes back, there's an iPad there that can do all of it for you. And this is a topic I know Karen likes to get into. And yeah, we get into it sometimes. But I found this interesting. The reason I played it, let me put this on screen right quick. Apple shot itself in the foot. So here's this is from USA Today, and this is actually from March 27th. What is today? Today is the 28th, so it's yesterday. So this is a new article. Apple discontinues a popular product, what we know. Apple has reportedly discontinued the Mac Pro, a desktop computer commonly used by musicians, video editors, and photographers. Now, I personally know many people who work in the different arts, whether it be graphics, music, video. I've known them over the years because I've been into that myself. I use a Windows-based machine. I'm not very good with the Linux stuff, but Apple is the standard. I don't know if that's the case in like major studios, but I know people who have pretty decent studios that they set up as a hobbyist that do their own music, release their own albums, and they are almost all exclusively using Apple products. So let me continue here. It says on Thursday, March 26th, the tech company discontinued the Tower desktop computer, which which had not received an update since 2023, according to Bloomberg. It's no longer available on Apple's website. The computer was priced at $69.99, so you're talking $7,000 computer, and that's the point I want to get to, where Apple shot themselves in the foot with this AI stuff. Okay, and I do use AI to do small things, little jingles, a little bit with graphics work for small stuff, but not professional production. So that's a $7,000 machine. And I know people that have had variants of this machine in the past, and they spent a lot of money on it and on the accessories for it and additional storage, which I want to get into that as well, as far as the cloud goes, which also ties into AI and data centers. But it's become outdated in the past 3 years as the smaller and less expensive Mac Studio added the M3 Ultra in 2025, according to Bloomberg. So I won't go on with this other than with the article, as I don't want to bore you all with reading. Oh, wow, it cut it short on me for some reason, but I'll pull it off screen. If you look at the price comparison to the stuff they're offering now, it's in the couple $100 to $1,000 range. So with Apple going to this AI and cloud-based storage, and let me backtrack just a little bit here. The purpose of having a machine on your floor or on your desk with external hard drives is that you own your content. You have your content, you have control of your content. And they made a lot of money selling that machine, selling the monitor, selling the keyboard, selling the mouse, selling the external hard drives, all this stuff Apple was making money on. But now they're offering you a solution, which is a subscription base, right? So now you're using something that is web-based, and your content is no longer there, physically there. So if you lose the internet, you're done working for the day. And I saw this in the Army happen in real time, where they sent us home because we lost access to the cloud, right? And that's where it's going now. Plus, you have to continually pay to have access to your intellectual property. And if you read the terms of service, like we were talking about earlier, you may not even own that intellectual property because you use their software to create it. So it just blew my mind that they shot themselves in the foot by discontinuing a $7,000 item for something that's a couple $100, but they're going to make it on the back end because of subscription to pay for the storage and update your cloud storage, get another 1 terabyte or whatever. That's the new model going forward, a rent-based model. But they're going to lose money initially in the short term because they're not selling those expensive things. And I did want to point one last thing out, Ash, before I hand it back over. Planned obsolescence. I talk about this all the time. Planned obsolescence. All they had to do was stop updating the stuff, and it becomes outdated. And now, I'm dealing with this with an old Windows 7 machine that my wife uses. She can't pay the bills because the web browser will not update to the latest thing, and the security features are not there, so she can't get into the website to pay the bills. So it's being moved over slowly, and this is a good topic to bounce after Karen's topic with the tech stuff. But yeah, they're slowly planned obsolescence to push us into something new. Get rid of the old products. You can't even buy it. If you own the old product, it's not going to work anyway. My video and audio stuff I use on a machine that's an older version of Windows, and it's stuff that I used in the mid 2000s. Acid Pro is what I use, and then Vegas Video, both Sony products. I saved the install files. Once in a while, it will hook me up, or not hook me up, screw me up. It will update, and then all of a sudden it wants me to sign on to a monthly thing, and I say no. I have to uninstall everything, reinstall it from scratch, and then go in and do some registry crap to make it not update. It's a pain in the butt, really, but there are ways to get around it. So I wanted to throw that out there, Karen. I knew you would like that. And let me just play one more video before we go around the table, if I can, Ashley.
Go ahead.
The irony of it. Here we go.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? A little too ironic. And yeah, I really do think it's like rain on your wedding day. It's a free ride on your already paid. It's the good advice that you just didn't take.
Yeah, I wanted to play that. No, it's not named that tune, Ashley. I wanted to play that because it is ironic that Apple's going to lose a lot of money over moving into this newer model, and it may or may not succeed. So, and with that, back to you, Ash.
Okay, yes, this is something that is topical, of course, because we do have and have been for many years being herded into the subscription model, and it was said in the chat. Um, Ronnie hates this song so much, which I think is honestly, that's so rude. This is a great song. And it was Spirit of the Age earlier who said, what is this? Name that tune. So anyway, it is very important, and we know that this has been being set up. The chat is acknowledging that as well. The very, very famous World Economic Forum article that was released in 2026 excuse me, 2016, you will own nothing, you'll have no privacy, or I will own nothing, I have no privacy, and I've never been happier. So we definitely see this push to the subscription model. And as far as whether or not Apple is going to lose money, my personal thought is it doesn't matter, because so many of these big tech companies, AI, all of these businesses, social media, are propped up by huge grants from our government. So at a point, I don't even think it matters if they're profitable. And we know that this was one of the ways that Amazon was able to weasel its way into everyone's lives, because they had subsidized funding, and that's how they could get you 2 free day shipping. And they lost money on that for a long time, but guess what? It didn't matter. So I think that we are, in many circumstances with a lot of these businesses, I think it's like a post-profit concern. It's really not, I don't think they really care about that very much at this point. And if that's overall the message now, is something like this a trial balloon to see if it would be mass accepted from many other platforms? Perhaps. And it is possible that it could end up being a big stinker, but I think we never know. Yes, government contracts, fascism. Yes, for sure, Spirit. So that's my 2 cents. I want to check in with Karen and see what Karen has to say about this.
Well, this is my topic, and that Crush video. Hey, I still watch that just for fun. I shared that. My daughter is a graphic artist. She's fantastic. So good. And spent her whole life crafting, honing her skills in so many areas. And I sent that to her right away. I said, oh my goodness, look at this. And it's all the tools of human creativity, in music, art, sculpture, drawing, all of the tools of expression and channeling the gifts of God and of the spirit and our soul, completely being crushed and incorporated into a machine, which I think is the essence of the spiritual battle that we're in the heart of at this point, the spiritual warfare against that which is organic and holy in us and creative. So that's a perfect video. And I would like to say, I think it's more important than ever. If you want to have music, learn to play an instrument. Give your kids the gift of learning to play instruments, playing together. Keep your CD players and your old tape decks, and you can still buy those, and your DVD players, and don't throw away those old stacks of movies, DVDs, CDs, albums. Save them. They're precious at this point, just like books. Physical media is where it's at. Human interaction is where it's at. And on that note, John Angry Tiger, DJ Angry Tiger, tonight at 8:30 for Tiger Tales. He does a live set list, and then mixing and plays your requests. So bring in any kind of musical taste, anything goes. Join us. We have a lot of fun. 8:30 on Rumble, DJ Angry Tiger for Tiger Tales.
I did want to say one more thing.
Go right ahead. I could talk forever on this topic.
Speaking of Tiger, I spoke with Tiger earlier today, and he says, you know what, man? Because I told him what the topic was going to be if we got to it, with the Apple Crush thing and the losing of the massive processing unit that people don't need anymore, because they could just use the cloud. They can use the AI and data center to do their stuff for them and move to that subscription model. whatever. Anyway, he was telling me today, he's like, dude, do you realize that they now, I forget what platform he said it was, if it was Spotify or what it was, but it was just earlier today, like 2 hours ago. He said that they're mixing music now, and mixing it, dropping the beat, doing the scratches, all that stuff.
Yeah.
AI is doing that
I've
now.
seen that. I've seen
Now
that. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it, and he said it's not bad, and I would say the same thing. When I use the AI thing to do some intros or whatever, they're not bad, but they're kind of generic. So you're never going to replace the human aspect of it. And with I've been working on collaborations with it, and what I'm doing is what I said I was going to try to figure out how to do months and months ago, where I get it, go ahead and generate a song that sounds somewhat okay-ish, but then I get to export those loops out, because that's where my weakness is. I don't have the loops anymore. I lost a massive hard drive with all my sound bites on it. So it's almost like I'm subscribed to get the loops, but remixing it by hand is way, way better. And I don't know if the market is going to reduce or go away for hand done stuff, or if it'll actually be more sought after. So that's the question, I think on the horizon. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Feeling, well, no, I'm sorry. My feeling is that there will always be a demand for hand done things, for the human created art and music, and I think there's already a swing back toward that. People are buying actual record players, turntables again, and vinyl, and there's new vinyl music being made and pressed, and a lot of the older music being repressed, but newer music being pressed also. So I think people understand, or some people understand, the value in that, and I would bet that the quote unquote deletes, the elites, or whatever you want to call them, predator class, that they absolutely will assure that they have those things in their house, and that their children do learn to play the piano and the guitar and read music or whatever it is, and that they have physical media available, and the finer things in life, the things that the art that truly makes life worth living, or that helps us through the rough times and the good times. So I think that some people will always value that, and it's up to us where we put our money and our time. We do have a say in this, whether we want to think we do or not. We do. So I'll hand it back to Ashley.
Yeah, I agree with that, Karen. I think that this is one of the things that we talk about often, is that we can cultivate the change that we would like to see in our life. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we can just put our money where our mouth is, and invest in the things that are valuable to us. And I think many of us agree that the physical media and appreciating human made art, whether that's music or actual art or just the craftsmanship, or more specifically American craftsmanship, I have seen a resurgence of people appreciating things that are actually sourced and made in America, that are not toxic. Those things are not cheap, those are niche industries. However, I have seen more appreciation and a resurgence for that kind of thing. And my old buddy Keel from the Union of the Unknowns, that was exactly the line that he said all the time, is buy physical media. So shout out to Keel on that. Jason, what are your thoughts?
What was that movie that the Obamas that produced? It was like The End of the World. I
Don't
forget
Look
the
Up.
name of it. No,
Is
not
it Don't
totally.
Look
That
Up
was a
or
good
something
movie,
like
though.
that?
I've watched
It
that
was
movie.
before that one, Karen. It's in the same
Oh,
vibe,
okay.
but it's
Yeah,
not.
same.
The one, this had Ethan Hawke and Julia Roberts. It was on Netflix. I can't remember it either. Surely somebody
I
in the
got it
chat
on my
remembers.
Plex server. I downloaded it and put it on my Plex server. But if I'm not mistaken, that's the one where,
I don't watch
like, the
anything
end of
new, so I have no idea.
the end of the world comes. It was a Chinese attack or
Leave the
something
world
like that.
behind.
Yeah, that's it. And anyway, they had like,
Doc says leave the world behind.
yep, that's it. Thanks, Doc. But in that movie, the little girl, the young girl in one of the main characters, was watching Friends and was like at the final episode, and it like the world went out, like everything went out like during the final episode, and that was her main concern the entire movie, was seeing that last part of the Friends, the actual show Friends, which my wife can't stand, by the way. I think it's hilarious, but whatever. Anyway, so all this stuff goes on, end of the world, blah, 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 self-driving cars plowing into each other, all this stuff. And then at the very, very end, when everyone's freaking dead, she finds a bunker. And in the bunker was some rich guy's bunker that obviously didn't make it. And she goes in there and boom, he's got a library of physical DVDs. And she was just like so happy. The world's ending, right? The world's gone. You're getting blown up, but I want to see that last episode of Friends. And she found it and threw it in there. That's how the movie, spoiler alert, that's how the movie ends. But anyway, I thought that was interesting when you talk about physical media. And I do keep our physical media. I've got probably over 1,000 DVDs in the hard cases. And we did donate a bunch to, my wife has a grandma and an aunt in the same nursing home. And we donated a whole bunch of family friendly DVDs to them. I hated getting rid of them, but they didn't have crap to watch. So we donated those, but I keep most of them in boxes. Yes, they're under the stairs. You get the little door that goes under the stairs. We got boxes in there full of DVDs. I do keep them digital as well, but I have the backups in case something happens. Like, the internet goes out. What am I going to do if the internet goes out? I can't watch my movies. Got to have that physical copy.
Yeah, very important to hold on to these things that we value, the actual physical form. And we know that, and this is something that Karen has talked about, and I believe that our chat knows very, very well. But as far as books go, having physical copies of your books. Now, if it's just some sort of light fiction reading, I don't mind getting it on my Kindle, because I don't plan on going back to that. I don't plan on using it for important documentation, that kind of thing. And I think that in some cases I find it to be handy. However, when I am looking at a book that I consider to be important, and the information, I don't want it being changed, or I would like to know what the original version of that book said, I always try to have a physical copy of that for that reason. So I think that is, I think it's good advice. Okay, so Jason has several other things pulled up. So let's go ahead and go with your number 2 priority, Jason.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to play a couple of videos here to lead us in. And here, let me get my hotkey ready so I can unmute myself. Here we go.
And the people sinned a great sin, for they had made them a god of gold. And they bore him upon their shoulders, and rejoiced, saying, This be our God, O Israel.
All right, so for those listening on audio, that was the scene from 10 Commandments where they raised up the golden idol they made, but it was the golden statue of Trump. There's a story to this. Let me play a second video real quick, and then we'll get into the article.
Gold-leafed statue of US President Donald Trump, dubbed Don Colossus, is now at the center of a money and copyright dispute.
Now, this has left the statue stranded in a sculpture studio in the state of Ohio. The bronze monument, worth $360,000, shows Trump raising his clenched fist moments after surviving the assassination attempt at a 2024 campaign rally. Commissioned by crypto investors backing a pro-Trump meme coin, the statue now lies on its back as an unfinished gold structure.
Sculptor Alan Cottrell accuses the project's backers of using images of the statue to promote their cryptocurrency without permission. He calls it an ongoing violation of his copyright.
All right, I'll cut it short there, just because it's a little bit of a long clip. But basically what happened is there was a statue that's built of Trump doing his little clenched fist, that whole staged photo op. And I'll pause before I get to the article to let you guys chime in on this as well. But he's not releasing it because I guess it was a copyright infringement because of a meme coin or some kind of a digital coin is using that same image as their, and correct me, somebody make this make sense to me. How can something that's not real, that's digital, own an intellectual property right of an image? I don't understand, because it's not a physical coin. This blows my mind. But the thing is that everything around Trump is gold, 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 idol, statue. And then the article I want to get to is an actual coin, and it's kind of unprecedented, that's going to be minted by the U.S. Treasury, not by somebody making a commemorative coin that's trying to make some bucks on it or whatever, not a gold-plated commemorative. This is literally by the U.S. Mint. So what do you guys think about the videos and the Trump worship? Ashley, back to you.
Yeah, obviously I find it to be disgusting. I think there's much to be said about that, but I think I can just concisely say it's disgusting, and I am not interested in seeing a statue of him in any context. And but I think that it does speak to the idiocracy of where we find ourselves in today's day and time. And I can't imagine that there's very much support out there. Maybe there is, and maybe there would be, manufactured bots to make it look like there is. I really don't know, but obviously he's disgusting. So, Karen, thoughts?
Karen, I
This
think
whole
she's
thing,
froze up. Okay.
oh my gosh. Oh, did I freeze? Am I I said that was nauseating. Thanks a lot.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah, we
thoroughly
can.
disgusting to me. I can't even look at the White House these days. It wasn't my favorite place.
I think we have a delay, Karen. We can hear you now.
Am I frozen, unfrozen? What? Okay. So I wasn't a big fan of the Oval Office anyway, but at this point, I can't even look at the Oval Office with all of that gold gilded stuff everywhere and the gold furniture and gold drapes. It's thoroughly disgusting. And somebody mentioned idolatry in the chat. Yes, it's idolatry. And there was also a coin minted in Israel during the pandemic, I believe, that had very symbolic images all around it that play into the vaccine and the AI and drones and transhumanism. So this is not the first coin that's been minted in Trump's honor that you're talking about, Jason. But I just find it thoroughly disgusting, this whole thing with Trump.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, did you have a video that you wanted to show us, Jason?
Are we
And
good?
if you do, Karen, I was gonna say, if you maybe want to try to jump out of the studio and hop back in and see if that may help with our delay a little bit.
Also,
Then
Karen, try to adjust I got us on 1080p. So if you put
Okay.
your camera on 720, that may help as well. If you got a lot going on in your house, it may be sucking bandwidth. So, but no, I don't have another video, Ashley. I did want to read a couple comments.
Try what adjust?
Your camera settings, if you put it on 720p, like what is that, standard definition rather than high definition, that may help. I have to do that sometimes on my end when I had the slower internet.
Okay.
Or they were watching too many cartoons or
All
whatever.
right. I'll drop out and come. Okay. I'll drop out and come back.
Okay. So anyway, Levi had mentioned something. Narrow Way, Narrow Gates Ministries had mentioned now Trump's signature will be on the $100 bill, and all money and signature contrary to law, tradition, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's kind of on par with what this article's about, Levi. I didn't see about the signature, but I did see reports on they're thinking about making a Trump $1 coin. And this article kind of goes into the precedent of that. So do you want me to jump into the article, Ashley? Okay, so here it is. This is from NPR, and this was what's the name of that show they do? I don't listen to NPR, but I forget the name of the doggone show, but it's one they play all the time. Oh, All Things Considered. There we go. So this was an interview It's a transcript of an interview done with the curator of it's like a coin, a monetary thing, like a museum or whatever in Colorado Springs. I wish I would have went there when I was there. I had no idea it was there. But anyway, here we go. I'll just read the intro here. President Lincoln is the face of the penny. President Jefferson is on the nickel. FDR is on the dime. George Washington is on the quarter. And as of last week, the U.S. Commission of Fine Arts unanimously, keep that in mind, approved the design for an official U.S. Mint produced commemorative coin. So it's not currency, I guess. But it's made by the U.S. Mint. That's the key part here. Depicting President Trump. The vote is perhaps unsurprising since Trump fired the entire commission last year and installed his own slate. Also, perhaps unsurprising, the coin will be made of 24-karat gold. Joining me now to talk about this is Caroline Turco. She's a curator of the Money Museum, which is run by the American I can't say that word, association, whatever. So anyway, so here's what they say. It would be unprecedented. It has happened once before in 1926 when Calvin Coolidge, celebrating the 150th anniversary of our independence, placed himself beside Washington. And I had a screenshot of that, but I lost it. I closed out and I didn't have time. But at that time, it was not illegal. The legality of putting a living person on a coin did not occur until 1982, which incidentally is when they took the copper out of the pennies. I think 82 and before are pure copper, and everything after is copper plated zinc. Just keep that in mind if you're collecting copper. So if we're thinking about in terms of an illegally minted coin, it would certainly be a first. So here we go. We got Trump regime that he installed. They're going to do something that's actually illegal to do. Imagine that. Kind of like go to war without congressional approval. Anyway, when we first looked at the coinage, 1972, when the U.S. Mint was first established, 1792. I got number dyslexia, folks. Please bear with me. When the U.S. Mint was first established, they went to George and said, "We're ready for you. We need your portrait. You've got to be on our coins." And he said, George, meaning George Washington, by the way, he said, to paraphrase, "Over my dead body. You know," he said, "we just fought a war against a monarchy. Why on earth would we replicate how monarchs put themselves on coins?" Okay. The coin features, so this new coin features President Trump, and he is very aggressively standing, before his desk with clenched fists. He's very chiseled. His very chiseled face is angry. I might argue it certainly is a powerful image. It's an aggressive image. It's a head-on. This is very, very interesting. It is not a side profile like we've seen on coins before. And I wish I could get a picture of this, but I haven't seen it or, what they're planning on doing. This is a description. It's a head-on. It's not the typical side view that you get. I think it's more about who has control of the narrative, because if you're putting an active political person on there, then they have control of that narrative. Coins have been used as propaganda and political messaging since the very beginning. It's worth noting there's this whole separate proposal for a $1 coin with Trump's face. It's not clear when or whether that would be minted as well, but I want to go back to the start of this. This coin is commemorating the 250th anniversary of the United States. As if it were up to you, or if it were up to you, like, what is your coin that best signifies the history? And this is the person questioning, the person running the interview, that signifies the history of America. Which would you put forward at this moment? Now, I want to drop this off the screen for a second because I have something I want to show. I collect coins. I love coins.
Jason, if I may interrupt, Deb has shared a couple of links in our chat showing the Trump coin.
Let me see if I can find it. Oh, wow, it's gonna be tough. Let me see.
Just scroll to find the links. That should be pretty easy to find because it was like the last 3 links, but I think the last 2 that she shared were the coin.
Oh, that's a video. I don't want to do a video. I'm all messed up. If somebody could get that, those are YouTube's. Maybe we'll pull that up after.
Okay.
I'll pull it up after when you guys do your commentary. But before I move on and finish the article, I want to show everyone this. They did a Sacagawea coin, which we are related to Sacagawea, or at least her tribe. My mom did trek that back. I got a diverse heritage, mostly Irish and English, but we have a little bit of Native American, just a tad, a little bit more than Elizabeth Warren. So here's a gold coin on screen. This is a Sacagawea coin. I have a few of these. And then here is the other one they did. I didn't realize they had two of them until I got some of these. There's a car wash back in Colorado that I used to use that would dispense these gold coins. They're not real gold, of course. They're gold colored. But I didn't realize they had a Rutherford B. Hayes coin as well that was minted like the Sacagawea coin. And on the back, and this goes into the article, you have the Statue of Liberty, Lady Liberty. I don't know if you all can see that on screen. My camera kind of sucks up close. But anyway, let me finish the article. We'll move on. And then I'll get those videos ready that Deb pulled up as you guys are commenting. All right. And Turco, the person being interviewed, if it were up to me, I would have, it would have to be an image of Lady Liberty. We have used the concept of liberty, the allegory of liberty, since the very beginning of our coinage when we first made it in 1972, and we did that on purpose. We did that to avoid putting our leadership on coins. So liberty has represented our republic instead of rulers from the beginning. So that would be the most continuity. I think we could find something, find in something for the 250th anniversary is what she meant to say. So thank you, whoever put that up. Thank you. I think that's Ashley. Yeah, look at that. So instead of Lady Liberty up there, we have this guy. All right, I'm going to shut up now and throw it back to you, Ash.
Yeah, so that was, we got the links from Deb, and then this was from SMU Haskey. And it's also funny, I hear everybody pronounce that different in the chat. The SMU
His name is Sam.
Sam. Everybody has a different spin on that when they see your handle in the chat, which is funny to me. Okay. So that is, well, I don't know. I just feel like it's a sign of the times. There's nothing surprising about this for me. I think that this is very much in line with the brand that Donald Trump has. You know, we've talked about many times, he's completely off the rails, and this is something that an off the rails person would do, try to capitalize as much as possible on their image. And so no surprise there. What do you think, Karen?
I think it's nauseating. This grifting is incredible, and his savior complex is over the top. And you know, he's had that for a long time, but I don't understand why people are still buying into this baloney. The whole, I don't really have much to say about it. To me, it's just completely and thoroughly disgusting.
Yeah, I agree. So I won't be getting a physical Trump coin or a digital Trump coin. That
I bet you won't be buying a Trump Bible either, or
That is so blasphemous, the Trump Bible. And, you know, a lot of people don't remember, but when he ran the first time, when he won, he was actually selling that same Bible, and people forgot about it. My guess is nobody bought it, and they sat in a warehouse and they just dusted them off later and pretended like it was something new. But he did that the first time, and I voted for Trump the first time, and that, you know, I voted for him, and then that Bible, ooh, there goes my coin. That Bible came out, and I was absolutely appalled. You're not supposed to add to or take away. That's the thing, right? It says it in the Bible, and I know it's specifically talking about, you know, a portion of the Bible, but still, you don't do that. And when you add your signature, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all that stuff to a Bible, I don't know. To me, that's just blasphemous. And I'm not even that. I mean, I'm kind of religious, but I'm not real. I have faith, right? I'm not religious, but I'm not super out there with it. And that to me was a smack in the face when that happened. And people forgot about it.
Many such cases. Many such cases. Okay, so what else do you have for us, Jason? I see that you have two more things shared. One about the petrodollar, and what is the second one that you have down there?
Okay, well, I was gonna I was gonna concede my time, but since we are talking about the dollar and money and stuff, I will do this. Let me play this video about the petrodollar because I have said this from day one. I didn't specifically say it was about the dollar, but when we were blowing up boats and when we renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America and started blowing up boats in the Caribbean, which people don't understand, that's not the Gulf of Mexico. That is a separate body of water. But the the visual that people have in their head as far as Americans and MAGA folks think that, oh, we own that whole area. No, we were outside of our jurisdiction blowing up people and double tapping them, by the way. And I won't even get into the girls' school because that just infuriates me. I will lose my shit. Excuse my French. I will lose my stuff on that because they double tapped it 40 minutes later. That is a terrorist tactic. Anyway, let me stop with that. But when it comes to Venezuela, I had said early on, because I was looking, and you both know this, I was looking into these stories that I hadn't reported on for a couple of weeks. I was sitting on them. China had signed a lease with Venezuela. After all the oil companies were pushed out, China signed a lease with them, and they were going to start doing some, I think it was offshore drilling, actually. And that's when we got involved. So I was like, it's about the oil. It's not about drugs. It's not about fentanyl. It's not about these boats that can't even make it a quarter of the way to the U.S. on their fuel reserves. Not going to happen. So what's this really about? It's about the oil. And then I got to looking deeper. I said, oh, it's not about the oil. It's about the petrodollar. It's exactly what it's about. And we see this happening in real time with the Strait of, I call it the Strait of Vermouth, right? I don't know why I do that. It just sounds right. But with the, let me just play the video and we'll talk about it. Here we go. I'm long-winded. I'm sorry.
Into this conflict, Iran made its most striking move yet. It wasn't a missile, a drone, or any conventional weapon. Instead, it was a single sentence from a senior Iranian official to CNN on a Saturday morning. Iran would allow oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, but only if the payments were made in yuan, not dollars. Just 4 words, yuan only.
And I think he meant to say 4 syllables, not 4 words. So he was off on his math there. But anyway, yeah, that's what I'm seeing right now. And I talked to Tiger about this early on. He knows. I was like, I think this might be about the dollar. I think this might be about oil, about the petrodollar in relation to oil. And yes, people have made some very good points about how, we can take that hit because, it's only like 2% of our energy comes from there. So we're not going to see a huge hit, which also begs the question, why is our gas prices going up if that's not really affecting us? It's because they're sharking us is what they're doing. They're raising it because they can, because what's on the media that you see. But anyway, the problem with it is our allies get most of their energy from there. And our allies are people who trade with us. So, and Karen brought it up. I think you were the first one that brought this up, Karen, in our circle about the fertilizer issue. And what are we in? We're in planting season. So yes, we may not see gas prices go up or diesel prices go up, or at least they shouldn't go up, not more than 2%, according to the math on it. Although it is, they're gonna price gouge us, of course, but everything else, and it's going to be a delayed effect. The stuff we get, whether it be fertilizer, food we trade, car parts to put, even if we have a manufacturer here that pieces together the cars from globally sourced parts, like my lawnmower, my Craftsman lawnmower says, proudly made in America with globally sourced parts in tiny writing. Everything is going to go up on that. And I don't think people are realizing that. And plus, we're also alienating our allies. So when we need, and we've seen this, we've seen where, Trump's asking, hey, help us open the strait. And everyone's like, no, go screw yourself. So I don't know. We've really got ourselves in a pickle here. And I don't think we've seen the financial pinch just yet. And then there's another question. I wish Tiger was here to talk about it. The bond market. All of these people that are allies with us have kept us afloat by buying bonds. What's going to happen when those bonds become worth what Putin called them, candy wrappers or toilet paper, if you could translate it a little differently? What's going to happen is a lot of people are thinking, my thought was this move was to keep the petrodollar afloat, to keep the dollar afloat until they're ready for CBDC. But some people think the opposite, that they're trying to crash the dollar right now. I don't know. Oh yeah, I see Billy's comment. So what are you saying? Trump is trying to destroy the dollar on purpose? That's the only way this is about the petroleum dollar. So Billy, yes, some people are saying that. I personally thought it was about trying to keep the petrodollar afloat, to keep the dollar afloat. I don't know. I'm not a financial guy. This is just what I'm seeing. I've been right about this stuff in the past. Sometimes I've been wrong. So that's why I want to open it up for conversation.
Karen, what are your thoughts on this?
I think we better get our gardens planted and make sure you've got, if somebody is taking prescription medications, you need to look at the herbs that may substitute for those medications. For example, diabetes, something that helps with that is apple cider vinegar and berberine. So if you know somebody who's dependent on insulin or diabetes medications, it's really important that you have some things stocked up that may substitute for those medications. And most conditions do have some herbs that will help at least. And also it's more important than ever that we take care of our health personally and in our family, which is harder to do because good healthy food is the price is going to go through the roof. I think we're in for a big food crisis. And I think we're going to perhaps see rationing. I have a rationing book that was from World War II for my relatives, and we may see that at some point. You may see people ready for whatever relief can be offered in order to take the digital ID and take the stable coins or whatever. But I think that my hunch is that, we've been going through this controlled demolition for quite a while, and the snowball is just really picking up speed at this point. But I don't know if we will even live to see the bottom of this. Those of us that are here, I think we're going to be going down for a while, and I think it's going to get a lot worse. And we've been warning about this for a long time and worried about it and trying to prep for it. And I know that I've been storing food and things, but I tend to use it up, or somebody I know needs it, so I give a lot of it away, and then I have to buy it again. So I don't have nearly as much as I would like to have prepped, but I have more than I think I do too. So I think that it's really important, like Jason was saying, that we build those community networks and realize that we will not all be able to do everything on our own. Most likely we will need people who have expertise other than that which we have. So it's important to know a variety of people and build those relationships. Don't broadcast what you have. I don't think that's a wise thing to do. Think about your gas tank. Think about where you are. If there is no more gasoline or diesel, what will you do? Where will you be stuck? What's your plan with your family? How will you meet? How will you communicate? Are you prepared for that? So it's all pretty scary, but I think that we all have kind of thought this might be coming, and perhaps it won't get that bad, but I think we're going down. I don't know how far down we're going to go, but I think we're going down, and I think it's all by design. Absolutely all by design. So guard your spirit, guard your humanity, and prep, pray, and stay out of the way.
Yes, and this is actually bringing in the things that I had brought today. But Jason, what is this other article that you have on the bottom?
Yeah, I got long-winded on the video, but I did have an article on this written in February, late February 2026. So it's recent. And I'll put it on the screen. Why not? Let's do it. Let's do it. F it. We're doing live. So this comes from independent.org, unpacking the petrodollar war theory. And this was something I came across after I've already kind of made my conclusion of what may be going on. But here we go. I'll read it out for those on audio. Great powers rarely separate economic production from monetary policy. Behind every strong trade route, a factory is a currency that the government has worked to make stable and that outsiders trust. But the strength of the US dollar, some argue, goes deeper, relying on military force rather than market competition. Exactly what I think. Among the most vocal proponents of that view is Robert Kiyosaki. You all know who he is, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Kiyosaki argues, while most people think Iraq, Iran, and Venezuela are about oil, that's the surface story. Exactly, I agree. The deeper motive is enforcement of the petrodollar, a system that helps maintain U.S. currency dominance by ensuring that global oil is traded in dollars. And as Tony Arterburn has very well pointed out, I think it was 2024 when that agreement was absolved. It just wasn't renewed. And that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And people have been since then, for the last couple years, have been taking advantage of that, trading in gold, trading in the yuan, trading in the ruples, and that's really harming the status. And that's what it is the status of our dollar, the perceived status of our dollar. And I'll say perceived because it's all smoke and mirrors, folks. The dollar's not worth crap. Just look at the price of gold compared to 100 years ago. The dollar's not worth crap. It's a perceived value that I'm going to give it to you tomorrow for what it was worth yesterday, when really it's not worth as much. And that's a whole nother topic to get into. So we'll pause on that. Anyway, this is into the history of the petrodollar system. After the collapse of the Bretton Woods system in 1971, when President Richard Nixon ended the gold standard, the dollar was no longer backed by gold. The United States needed another mechanism to reinforce global demand for its currency. Again, demand for its currency. And that's why I brought the bond issue. And I'd love to talk to Tiger about this at some point and get his take on it, or even Greg Manarino, because Greg Manarino, he's a pretty sharp cookie as well. In 1974, the U.S. reached a strategic agreement with Saudi Arabia. Saudi oil would be priced and sold in U.S. dollars, and in return, the U.S. would provide security guarantees and access to American financial markets. Hence, Kuwait, right? Kuwait was part of this deal. We went and secured that. That whole nother story there. Other members of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, largely followed suit in standardizing dollar-based oil trade. This arrangement became known as the petrodollar system. Because oil is the world's most traded commodity, countries needed dollars to buy it. Oil exporters then reinvested those dollars into U.S. Treasury bonds and financial assets, a process called petrodollar recycling. This is where it's crashing, folks. This is where it's crashing. Just think about it. And the last thing I'll read, no formal treaty legally binds OPEC countries to use the dollar. It's more of more convention than law. In recent years, some producers, including Saudi Arabia and Russia, have accepted yuan, euros, or other currencies, including gold, I'll add to that, in bilateral deals. The dollar remains dominant largely because of habit, liquidity, switching costs, and the depth of the U.S. financial markets. And I would also say our military might. I would add that to it. That's added by me. Even today, roughly 80% of global oil transitions are denominated in dollars. I'm having a hard time reading today for some reason. Too caffeinated, maybe. The currency's integration with global banking systems, particularly the SWIFT payment networks, reinforce that dominance. So what we're looking at here is a system that's put in place that has slowly, based off of confidence. That's all, just confidence. There is no gold backing. If you go back through what I just read, there's no gold backing on the dollar. It is based on, the value is based on what we believe it's based on. And as that, and then there's bonds involved, right? As that confidence diminishes and people start trading outside of it, all of a sudden, like Vladimir Putin said, they're candy wrappers. Your money is candy wrappers. And we're getting to that point very quickly. So, and the only reason that we even have this system is because of military might. because there was really no official treaty. It was kind of a trade, it was agreement, whatever. There was no international law saying this has to be traded in dollars. It just became the norm. But now it's starting to not be the norm. And this big deal about going to the strait and everything has to be done outside the dollar is a really, really, really big deal. It's a very big deal. That is harming all of our allies. It's going to harm us. Our dollar is going to drop. I mean, I'm not just talking about with the energy trade. I'm talking about what people's confidence in the dollar is. If that goes away, your $100 is going to be worth 50 cents tomorrow. You know, and I hate to be a naysayer or doom guy, but that's what's going to happen. I mean, that's the only thing that can happen. I mean, look at the movie It's a Wonderful Life. When people lost confidence in their bank and went and did a bank run, the bank went broke and nobody had anything. That's kind of what's going to happen on a global scale with the dollar if this stuff continues to happen. We need to figure out a solution to this somehow, and I don't know what the solution is. All right, I'm sorry, Ashley. I was long-winded yet again. So back to you.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, I do not profess to be obviously an expert in this way, but what I would just like to say is that these things that we have on the horizon, what we do know for sure is that we have a lot of uncertainty in our environment. So if you are in a position of being able to invest, then I recommend finding people in this space that you trust that could help you diversify your portfolio. You know, having something in gold and silver. If you are interested in crypto, I know not everyone is. I know that not everyone subscribes to that. That's fine. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying if you are interested, then there are people that are out there who can help you diversify with Bitcoin, or even some privacy coins such as Monero or Zano, which you can actually wrap. You can use Zano to wrap your Bitcoin and to increase the privacy of that. So if that happens to be your thing, if it's not, I'm not telling you what to do. This is not financial advice at all, but just that if this is something that you're concerned about, but perhaps you can look into diversifying your savings or putting a little bit away in, you know, like what we've talked about with Wise Wolf, silver and gold, buying a little bit every month if you can, and as well as getting some other potentially tradable supplies. I know this is something that Tiger talks about, you know, with the medical supplies, things like that, or even, you know, a pack of lighters, right? Or some matches that you could share, trade, barter, things like that. If you have a capability to do that right now. And if not, then I think the other things that we could potentially do are to make those connections with friends, family, neighbors, find where people are growing their food or producing their food. And if you don't have anything that you could, you know, if we get into you know, a hitting the fan situation, then perhaps you could trade some sort of labor that they would find valuable in order for a little bit of food, things like that. So I think there are options in these are in certain times. So Karen, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, you covered that very well, Ashley. I was also thinking of what Angry Tiger says about just having some kind of commodity, whether it's matches or I would think chocolate and alcohol and cigarettes.
Weed. People
A
want
big
weed.
deal, and you won't need to trade a whole pack of cigarettes, a whole chocolate bar. Weed, yeah. I think, yeah, those types of things are big. And chocolate is, you know, there are a lot of things that chocolate is good for. It can actually be fairly healthy if you have a good quality chocolate. I used to go to the dollar store and just buy whatever I wanted to buy from the medical supply aisle, rolls of gauze or different size bandages, or I have cold medicine, diarrhea, gas, Pepto-Bismol, all kind. I mean, I've got all kinds of things you could get for $1 back in the day, and I have quite a bit. I bought a lot of sewing supplies, spools of thread, buttons, snaps, needles, pins, all kinds of those types of things that I have put away, and I try to pick those things up if I'm in the grocery store and I see a pack of lighters on sale or whatever. I'll buy them. Whatever's on clearance, I buy a couple things like that just to save. because you never know. And I think that those of us who had grandparents who grew up in the Great Depression, I remember that those people didn't throw anything away. They used their clothes again. They knew how to repurpose things. They saved paper. So I think that it would behoove all of us to look at things more that way. And instead of buying something new that you don't really need, buy something that will last, or something that will fill a need at some point for you or somebody else. And the chat has been hilarious today. Lots of great comments and insight and humor in the chat today. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Definitely, and some good points. Cigarettes, that is a currency in a prison situation, which, depending on how you look at it, that could be how we look at our situation. So I think having some extra smokes is not a bad idea. We did see suggestions for coffee, and also one of the commodities that is predicted to be affected, there are many, with what we're seeing currently, is some basic things like sugar and salt. So maybe even stocking up on those things that wouldn't necessarily break the bank. And I'm not trying to be financially insensitive by saying that, but just hopefully maybe you could add an extra bag of sugar. And I know that maybe not everyone is in a position to do that, so I do not want to come across as being insensitive to that. I'm just saying, if you maybe have the ability to do so, because that could be something that could be valuable and barterable. Karen.
That's a great point there. And I think also it's important that we try to learn how to actually make perhaps jerky, hardtack, things that last. I actually learned how to make hardtack and made a bunch of hardtack a while back, because it was not expensive, easy to do, and it lasts, and it's food. So and think back to what I mentioned. I have a ration book from one of my relatives from World War II. Yes, sugar, coffee, butter, milk, flour, eggs, gasoline. That's what is in that book. And those are the salt. Don't forget to stock salt. We all need salt. And salt has been a currency throughout history. So don't forget to buy some extra salt. And it's non-perishable. But I think it's important that, for instance, can you bake a loaf of bread? Do you know how to make some basic foods? If you can't buy Twinkies, Ho-Hos, and Wonder Bread, or what, and I don't mean to insult people. I know most people don't eat that here, but if you can't buy those things, what are you going to eat? If you have a flour, baking soda, and salt at home, can you make something with it? I think it's important that we think about those things.
Yes, and I think that's a great point, and I think that this could be something that we could maybe even add to like our little checklist of, hey, if you don't know how to make biscuits or something like that, then maybe watching a little YouTube or doing a recipe share or things like that. So small things. And the main thing that what I don't want to do is to be doom and gloom, because I think that we have given a lot of examples here of how like small things that we can try, and all we can do is try. We can try within the context that is available to us, and just try to be aware and educate ourselves, things like that. That's all that we can do. So we, as Karen was saying, there's a lot of stuff that's in the chat that a lot of good information, a lot of people that are talking about easy. White Wolf is saying soda bread is easy to make. Levi's a master baker. AT is saying that Karen said canned meat. AT was saying hardtack is easy and cheap to make. And maybe before I move on, because I have a couple of things that I want to tie into what we're talking about, but let's have Karen explain, just in case I happen to be someone, not saying that I am, that doesn't know what hardtack is. You can explain that to us, Karen.
It's basically flour and salt and a little bit of water, and you bake it slowly for quite a while, and then you can put it in mason jars and use a brake bleeder and take the air out and put some little antioxidant packets in. I also have a dehydrator. I mean, it's not a dehydrator. No, it's not a freeze dryer. It's a dehydrator. So I dehydrate quite a bit of things, and things last quite a while that way. Like zucchini, I put vinegar, soak it in vinegar, and then and salt, and dehydrate it, and they taste pretty good. Like zucchini chips, and just look up hardtack. It's easy. Look on the internet. Look on YouTube.
I've had zucchini chips. Those are actually pretty good. I like them.
Yeah, they're actually pretty good.
Okay,
There
perfect.
you go.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, we, in this community, a lot of good suggestions. So I just want to encourage people to, while we acknowledge that this is a really challenging time, but there's skill and education to be found. And I think that could be where we could focus our energy better in trying to learn some new skills, or maybe get outside of our normal box a little bit in regards to communicating with folks, and getting out in our local area and finding what's around to us. Something else that we've talked about before is knowing where you could get a source of water. So I know that Karen has a system of like saving up some water, and of course, I think that's a good idea for us to have water filters, all that kind of stuff. But there's also a website that is sorry about my sound. My mic is moving around here. There's a website that I'm going to find really quickly, and I think it's findmyspring.org. And I'm going to bring that up to just double check, but this could be a good for you to locate where you may have a local spring water and that you could potentially fill up if you need to. And of course, just thinking about the water purification and things like that. So, and I wanted to touch base with Jason really quickly, and Karen again before we move on from this while I find the website. Jason.
Okay, had trouble unmuting there. So that's interesting. You should bring that up with the spring thing, because was it Sunday maybe? Not Sunday. No, it was Friday. I think it was Friday. I took JJ down the road on the four-wheeler, going to check the mail, and we went down to this the very end of the road on the one spur off of our neighborhood, and it says that that's owned by the water department, the local water place here. But I've seen activity down there, so I assume somebody was doing stuff down there they're not supposed to do. I was like, whatever. I would drive down there, and no, it turns out that I thought it's actually private property, and that is the route. If I was to get to the natural spring, that is the natural downhill route down a natural draw. If people know their topography, that's a draw is where the water has cut down and it goes down to a river or whatever, into a tributary. But I went down there, and the guy hollers at us. There was a dude down there with his friend doing some cleanup work. And typically people hunt down there illegally. They trespass and all this other stuff. I did not know it was private property. So when he started hollering at me, I stopped and I got off and talked to him. Dude was very, very nice. And he's like, you can come down here anytime, man. He walked us around the property, showed us everything. So now I have permission to go on this guy's property. And we talked about that exact thing, Ashley, I said, do you know there's a natural spring down at the base of this thing? And he's like, yeah, I know about it. I was like, hey, and if crap hits the fan, man, I might be having to come through here with some jugs to get some fresh, clean water that comes from our water table into it kind of feeds this river that's typically dry. It's like a dry tributary, but the only water that flows through there is from the spring, but it continually flows year round. It's creeks here in Missouri are like that. They're spring fed. But yeah, so now I have a good relationship with this neighbor, mainly because I stopped, because when he catches people down there, he chases them off, probably with a shotgun. But I was like, no, what's going on, dude? Oh, I thought this was property of the city or whatever. He says, no, they have the property back there. He's in the process of getting that property back because they're done using it. So they had some kind of an easement, and then they had put up signs and stuff. So that's why I was misled into believing it wasn't private property. Totally cool. Now I got a resource for fresh water if I need it, and I have the guy's permission and probably his protection. And if I could offer something in exchange, whether that be like fractional silver or 90% silver, whatever he finds valuable. Maybe it's chili peppers, or maybe it's marijuana, or maybe it's tobacco, whatever I can offer in return. That's the solutions we need to start looking for. Is just not that you were going to do that going forward, but have the option available. It's kind of my thing. But yeah, I found it interesting you brought the spring thing.
Okay, perfect. And I did find that. So that is findaspring.org. I'm going to add it to the stage just so you can see it and try to zoom in a little bit here. But for some reason, it was not wanting to, I don't know, pull up the website. I don't know if my internet isn't working, and it's very tiny. I was trying to make it bigger. It's not working. Findaspring.org. And Franco had said that in the chat to know your water table. So yeah, maybe that's one of the things that we could add to our checklist. Like, see, what is the water situation around here? Where can I go if I need to get it? How can I filter it? And whatever else you could find and educate yourself on about your water table. I think that's not a bad idea at all. So great suggestions there. And before we move on, Karen, thoughts on any of what we just talked about there?
Well, I bought some I think they're called number 10 cans. They're pretty big. Everything's gone up so much now, but I bought some freeze-dried milk and butter, blueberries, apples, and I have a lot of that stuff. And I keep forgetting about it, but they last for 25 years. So maybe you could buy one can of, I tried to get some protein, but also some fruit. So maybe you could concentrate on that too. And then canned oysters and clams and things like that. I have a big supply of those, and I feel rich when I get more clams and oysters. I get a kick out of buying this stuff. So you don't have to do it all at once. You can do it a little bit at a time, and you might as well get started. Some of us think, oh, it's too late. I can't do it now. I should have started. No, start now.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the encouragement, because I think that we can start affecting change no matter where we're at on our journey, whether that's buying, an extra cigarette lighter for a couple of bucks that you could potentially trade, some matches, all these things that we listed. So there's a lot of, if you want to just focus on the education part, a lot of education as far as what we talked about here, baking bread, some things that would help us like filter the water or find water, whatever that may be, or all these good tips that we had. So I think that that's a good thing, because some of the stuff that I brought, it is very serious and heavy subjects, but I do not want to leave people feeling black-pilled. And I think that, or feeling hopeless. I think that is exactly what we want to avoid. And that's where we have community and we have conversations to try to get through when it feels that way. And I'm certainly not immune to that, seeing what is coming out with some of the conflict that we have going on in Iran and the potential repercussions for that. It's concerning. I'm not going to lie, but I try to not dwell on that. And this conversation and the conversation with our chat is very helpful in realizing that we can, not be a victim, but try to acquire what skills or little knickknacks or whatever that we could have. So one of the things that I wanted to kick off with, and I had mentioned this earlier when I was tuning into Guard's show one day this week, that there were energy lockdowns that had been happening. So this is from Jason Bassler of the Free Thought Project, and I'm going to be sharing my screen here. And again, it's a little bit difficult to see, but essentially this is at Jason Bassler, BASSLER1 over on X, if you happen to be interested in following them. He said, energy lockdowns are here. Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Vietnam, Philippines, Slovenia, Egypt, Kenya, South Africa, fuel rationing, travel limits, reduced work weeks, all framed as, quote, temporary, all justified by crisis. And he says, coming to a country near you. Now, and here he he has an image that he included of the energy lockdowns and a little more information as far as that is concerned. And this is certainly affected by the price of a barrel of crude oil. And as we know, the conversations that we had was we know that the Strait of Hormuz has been closed down, that there is some limited passage through there, but not for the United States. Also, something that I haven't seen discussed this past week very much at all is that an oil refinery in Texas was actually on fire. Now, I did not follow up on the exact damage of that or how usable or unusable that particular facility is. So I'm going to ask Karen and Jason here shortly if they have anything about any more information about that. And then if you in the chat, please feel free to share that. But the point is that we're in a situation where our access to the oil that we have been used to is being limited. And then the energy lockdowns that some of these countries are implementing, they are moving to maybe work from home more, school from home, driving on certain days, things like this. And some of this we saw during the 70s, that there was difficulty. Obviously, we were in a weird time economically then as well. There were the gas shortages. I know everyone knows about that. And we did see things such as people with certain tag numbers. That was what allowed you to buy gas on particular days and things like that. I am not going to be making predictions. I just want to bring some things that I thought were good for the awareness of what we're currently seeing. So before we move forward with that, I wanted to check with, I'm going to go to Karen first and get Karen's thoughts on this.
I think the refinery was in Port Arthur, and it was officially ruled to not have been sabotaged, but I don't know. I don't know the details of it. I did read that there were 2 large egg producing farms that were, I don't know if they caught on fire, what happened, but that had issues last week also. And a few years ago, we saw a lot of food companies, food production facilities exploding and things like that. So whether it's overt and purposeful sabotage going on, we know the food supply has been under attack for a long time. So, we just need to expect that to continue and try to prepare accordingly.
Exactly. Yeah. And Jason, thoughts?
I swear you two ladies can read my mind. Like every topic I had prepared today, you guys have led into perfectly. And yes, I had the explosion at the Port Arthur, Texas oil refinery. I had that ready to talk about as well. It very well could just be an accident, but the timing of it is very suspicious. And Karen mentioned the food shortages and the food manipulation. I just want people to not forget history. Remember when we started having private airplanes crashing into chicken yards and stuff like that, and then the bird flu came, and then all the stuff that took down our poultry. And this might be a little conspiratorial, but that's when they started inoculating for the bird flu, which is an mRNA thing. Which my mom had. I asked her, how do you inoculate a baby chicken? And she said they do it in the egg, or you can inoculate the mother, and the baby will have the same, spike producing crap in them, potentially. So I just find it interesting how they knocked everything out at once, whether it be a private airplane crash or a culling, to make people replenish their birds with these new and improved birds with the feature, right? Not a bug, a feature. So I don't know what that means as far as energy. I would just say that if we start seeing multiple of these accidents happen with our energy, something's amiss. So I'm not going to jump to any conclusions so far, but this stuff happens. It happens with these places all the time. Not all the time, but the timing of it just to me is a little suspicious. That's all I got, Ash.
And either way, it is, it's something that's going to have the ability to affect us here in the States, as we already see rising gas prices. Particularly hit hard, of course, is California, where gas was already expensive, and we're seeing it $6 to $8 and maybe even more by then. And here in my area, it's risen at least $1 per gallon in a month, I would say. And I know our friends in Canada also are paying a lot for gas, our friends in France as well. So what I wanted to bring up, and somebody, I apologize for not remembering who shared this, but this is the next thing that I wanted to get into. So this is excuse me. Iran struck as record ethanol mandates push food prices higher. So this is from the artist Unshadowed, formerly known as Ice Age Farmer. And he has a presence on YouTube, Telegram, Substack, Patreon, and a lot of the stuff that he's discussing, I think most of us know if you followed him before during COVID times that he was putting out a ton of information and warning people about the way that our food supply was having the squeeze put on it. And then he went MIA for quite a long time, but in the last several months, he's back on the scene producing content again. And I find it to be pretty interesting and not talked about very, very much. So if you'll allow me, I would like to play a couple of minutes from this video, and I'm not going to play the whole thing, but the whole video here is only 11 and a half minutes. I'm just going to give us a couple of minutes so you can see the things that he's discussing and kind of letting us know about. And again, this is not in any way to cause fear, but we can use this as a way to try to prepare as far as we can.
The Trump administration has just finalized new goals for the production of biofuel in the U.S. This means throwing now record levels of U.S. farmland at fuel instead of at food. It mirrors the moves of other countries in responding to the energy crisis, namely Vietnam and Indonesia, and doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you realize we're going into a food crisis and that food prices are already anticipated to rise up to 18% next year, even if the Iran war stopped magically overnight and everything went back to normal in the Strait of Hormuz and so on and so forth. That 18% increase in food prices is eclipsed by the cost of inputs to farmers and the energy costs that they're paying for. So it's still an economic devastation that's going on there. I want to talk about all of that. And that's not, the increased production of biofuel is not the only acceleration of the deindustrialization and rapid decarbonization agenda that's being rolled out right now. Let's talk about it all. I'm Christian, and you can find me at unshadowed.org. And yes, Israel did just strike 3 of Iran's biggest steel production facilities today. Iran, in response, has announced that they'll be retaliating against other steel production facilities in the Middle East, which is the same sort of tit for tat we've seen across the oil refineries and so on and so forth. These steel production facilities account for 60% of Iran's entire steel production. Iran itself is also a steel exporter, mostly regionally. China, of course, dominates steel exports. And then, yes, this is also, if you're keeping track at home, part of the decarbonization agenda. Right here from the absolute zero timelines, we can read that by 2030, expected to see more recycling of steel and ultimately phasing out production of new cement and new steel. That's happening now. The war is being used to achieve this as well. That line item, of course, is, as I said, from this absolute zero timeline. I will leave yet another link to this below because it is, this is just one of many policy documents that the global warming cultists developed on their radical decarbonization goals. But it's just such a handy dandy graphic to quickly visually see when you see a headline of something going on in the war or a policy response like the biofuel increases. As a reminder, oh yeah, they told us they were going to do this more than a decade ago. So when you see the steel facilities exploding, yeah, that was part of that. It was broadcast there. Russia today also announced they'd be ceasing their exports of gasoline. That mostly affects African countries like Ghana and Syria, but also Turkey. And that's going to go through at least August. And it's just another example of how countries are protecting their own domestic supplies. Same kind of stuff we saw during COVID when exports were limited, especially of food, which is something that's mentioned here in a bit about food, that it's basically a situation of every country for himself. And then, yes, the White House, amidst all of this and amidst the obvious difficulties of farmers accessing fertilizer and the food situation globally being impacted by the energy crisis, in their infinite wisdom, decided that we would now be throwing more acres at biofuel today, setting a record level of biofuel goal. Now, a lot of people will be quick to point out, Christian, that's a different kind of corn. Like, we're not going to eat that corn. It's GMO and nasty, and great, put it into the fuel. I'm not saying that we should be eating that corn instead. I'm saying those acres could be used to grow food, right? Organically, or it could be better used than growing that nasty GMO ethanol destined corn.
Alrighty, so again, this is a pretty short video, and I really was very tempted to let it roll because I thought this was really good. And he covers a lot of really good information here about what the landscape looks like, things that are changing. Then this is information that you're not going to be getting in most of alt media, and you're definitely not getting it from the corporate press. So I think that this is a good place for you to reference if you're interested in kind of these many different things that are happening all at once. It certainly does feel like this situation is expediting, and the ripple effects of the conflict with Iran are being felt in many different ways. So whether or not we think that this is intentional, which I think that we do, but even if you don't, then what is happening are real effects, and that has to be something for us to acknowledge no matter what. So either way, we're dealing with what is happening with the fallout of whatever this conflict looks like. And I have one more thing before we end up wrapping, but before that, I want to go to Karen, get your thoughts on that, and then to Jason.
I talked to Bronx Stomper a week or two ago. Well, before we did coverage for Tony, asking about this topic and about the fertilizer, the ramifications of the Strait of Hormuz on fertilizer production and supply, etc., the impact on food down the line. And he talked quite a bit about the corn that Mr. Ice Age Farmer was referring to. The acres being used, a huge amount of acreage are used for things that go into ethanol or not to feed human beings, and that actually the crops that are being raised there aren't fit to feed human beings, really. They're not digestible. Or he also talked about the corn, the traditional corn that we have, heirloom corn that was grown previously, had a lot more nutrients in it than the corn that we are seeing raised now on a lot of acreage. And so that's another issue, is that the crops, that the corn that is being raised for ethanol and those purposes, not for human consumption, isn't nutritious. There's nothing in it. So I thought that was interesting. He was talking about that there.
Thank you, Karen. Jason, thoughts?
All right, I got to play this first.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? A little too ironic. And yeah, I really do think.
Okay, I won't make people sit through it again, but the irony of this is a couple key things. Number one, we're not supposedly worried about fuel shortage, right? Because only 2% of ours comes through the strait. I think we're more worried about the dollar. However, if there's going to be an emergency of fuel and they want to grow ethanol, which our engines, and Eric Peters has talked about this before, our engines are not designed to run on ethanol. They'll get destroyed. I think Tiger knows this as well. You can run a certain percentage in there. It doesn't stabilize well. It builds moisture. The problem is that this is the ironic part. In order to grow an alternate biofuel, you need the fertilizer. So now you're back down to square one. You're back down to the strait. Okay. And that's what people aren't seeing. And this is the second and third order effects of this stupid nonsense that we're doing. And what I really want to point out as my last thought, I have a lot of stuff. I could go for an hour on this, Ashley, that you kind of open a can of worms for me. But my last thought is that as energy becomes scarce, and we alienate our allies, I'm seeing in a global landscape here, what I'm seeing is everyone's going to hunker down into their hidey hole and protect their resources. And this is going to cause more conflict as people fight for those resources. So we really have opened a can of worms with this whole Strait of Hormuz thing, right? We've opened a can of worms because it affects so many nations. And another point to make is, why have we put all our eggs in one basket? We've done this over and over with everything, with shipping. And I had some stuff on that. We'll forgo that. I can get to it next time. But with shipping, with how we, our supply chains, our vendors, we have a handful of vendors now instead of a diverse choice list to go through. Everything is down to eggs in one basket, and that's so they can break those eggs and then give us the new egg, which is the New World Order. That's my final thoughts, Ashley. Thank you.
I was just telling Deb that because she said final thoughts, the final thoughts on that particular issue, Deb, we're not even on final thoughts, second final thoughts, final thoughts. We're not even there yet. So, but we are heading that way. I wanted to bring up a comment that Levi had made. He said the U.S. Army raised the maximum age of enlistment to 42 and suspended all marijuana charges barring enlistment. And of course, this is indicative of them of them making these adjustments in order to get more people to join the military or to be accepted to the military. So I don't believe that anyone here is tempted to do that. If you are, I would just say, definitely don't, please don't even think about it. I don't care how much free college they offer you in order to participate in this system. And I just think that we need to be unaware of that. I know that there have been some rumblings about the draft potentially coming back, or people being automatically enrolled for the draft, whereas before I believe that you had to specifically, as a male, when you're 18, sign up or register or something like that for a potential draft. Again, I don't take that to the bank. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that that's how it worked. And maybe Jason and Karen can correct me on that. But before I get to those guys, the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that this is an article from antiwar.com, and it is me doing my favorite thing, the thing that I'm best at, which is sharing a screen. So here we go. From antiwar.com, that the U.S. is preparing major escalation against Iran that could include ground troops and intensified bombing. I think that many of us have probably very likely been hearing these stories and the potential, or people's predictions that this potentially could be or the potential that we could put boots on the ground. Now, I have also seen many people saying that obviously this is a horrible idea, and in order to go in and defeat Iran, I was listening to a roundtable from Judge Napolitano that he recorded yesterday, where they were saying this: if you really wanted to go in to Iran and win the conflict with boots on the ground, this would require millions of soldiers on the ground, literally. Now, again, I'm not a war strategist. I don't know. I've never been to Iran. My understanding is that the terrain is extremely mountainous, that they really have the advantage when it comes to knowing the terrain. And they also have the advantage by having a lot of storage in underground and within those mountainous structures, so that troops on the ground would be a horrible decision. I'm not saying that we're not going to see that, but I just wanted to put it out there that this is something that is being thrown out. And Yes, Levi mentioned this in the chat. That was something else that I wanted to bring up, is that they have started, I don't know if they're actually there at this time, but that the 82nd Airborne has been deployed. And then we've also seen that I believe it's Marines, that they had started getting ready for that. So I just wanted to let everyone know, just share a couple of these things that we seem to be, moving towards, very unfortunately. So Levi said the U.S. sent full 82nd Airborne and 2 contingencies of 5,000 Marine expeditionary force to staging grounds. That Iran has called up 600,000 to service to repel the invaders. Yeah, and my understanding is that they absolutely have the military advantage here, not only for knowing the terrain, but just that the preparations that they've done. This is one of the other things that we have heard about from Iran, is that they have been very patient over these last many years and not pursuing active war, but if it were to come to that they are ready. So of course that we are worried about a prolonged conflict and a never-ending war in the Middle East. None of us want to see that. It's very unpopular, but it kind of looks like they are headed in that direction. And then before I do hand it over to Karen and Jason, I did want to say that I highly recommend listening to the episode from America Unplugged this morning. It's not that long. While the guys are talking, there was a lot of interesting information that was shared about some of the financial piece of this. And of course, Tony does have, as well as Jason, experience being actually in the military. So just wanted to throw that out there. And then I want to hear from Karen. What do you think?
Well, my understanding is that Iran is a natural fortress, geographically speaking, and topographically speaking. My opinion is that it's a fool's errand, a kamikaze suicide mission and I think that our quote unquote illustrious leaders are well aware of that. They know what they're doing. They're sending those people to their deaths. So it's really upsetting to me. I'm not happy about this at all. Iran has been preparing for decades. Yes, they have, I think, from what I hear, extensive preparations and underground, and it's all just disconcerting. But we know that the lives of the military mean nothing. We're pawns. The military, people who serve in the military have typically been from the lower socioeconomic classes. So, we know that those lives are worth nothing, basically. And we've seen that over and over and over and over again. So I'm sorry to hear that some people in the chat are talking about their loved ones in the military at this point. And I'm really sorry that they're in that position. And I don't know. I pray for everybody involved. Also, on the ethanol issue, we've been talking about glyphosate quite a bit and how it's got immunity, and et cetera, and other herbicides and pesticides. And those are used heavily on these ethanol crops. And so you're also getting glyphosate spewed into the air when you're using ethanol. So I just wanted to make that point. And one more time, say join us for Tiger Tales at 8:30 on Angry Tiger's Den channel, and bring your requests and enjoy some live set list and mixing, and have a great time with us. We really kind of let our hair down. So I hope to see you there.
Yes, I have to say that I was a bit late last week, but I did get my request in. My request was played, and I had a great time dancing to my request and everybody else's, dancing in my kitchen, dancing on my back patio, etc. So I highly recommend as well, get your requests in. It is a ton of fun, and Karen works really, really hard to try to keep up with that chat. And it is like, our chat is really busy here, but that particular chat is blazing, and it's filled with a lot of dancing emojis, but that's not the point. It's hard to keep track of everything. So Karen does a wonderful job with that. And
that's where my teacher training comes in.
Yeah. And Franco, of course, does a really a really good job, works super hard the entire time. So it's a ton of fun. And then I also want to shout out our friend Doc Spoiler. Doc has a movie presentation that he does every Saturday night as well as Monday night. And lately this week, he has actually had a couple of episodes of TV shows that he has shown through the week. But if you join his Discord, then that is how you can find all of that stuff. So if you do Franco's show on Saturday night, but you still want to catch Doc, he has a presentation on Monday. So wanted to mention that. Now, Jason, what are your thoughts on what we just talked about as far as the boots on the ground?
Well, first off, I want to say White Wolf beat me to it. I don't have any hair to let down, but I'll still be there. I'll let my beard down. And JJ often is in the house here dancing with me. So that's always a lot of fun. But yeah, I want people to, I'm going to speak from experience here. I've seen this twice, 2 deployments. Going into Iran, and I don't want to say that we want to back down from a fight. I know that America has to project its strength. However, we're the one picking this fight. We are the bully in the schoolyard right now. I firmly believe that. Nobody has attacked us. Nobody's hit us with anything that we need to go reply. We have gone around Iran because of the petro. And this goes back to the other topics. You know, all these topics are great today that they all tie in together in a global picture, right? An overall picture. But let me explain something real quick to people who are not familiar with military and how it operates and how the government operates. If I were to send 1,000 soldiers, boots on ground in Iran, guess what I need to send behind those 1,000 soldiers? 10,000 soldiers to support them with logistics, with housing, with food, water, supplies. And guess what happens? Those soldiers need a place to live, which comes into now contracting. These big, contractors that work with the military to come drop these 20-foot containers off that you live in and stuff like that. And then you have to have people working out there that are getting paid $120,000 a year to sit there and look at a computer screen all day, to support the soldiers who are supporting the soldiers who are supporting the soldiers who are supporting the ones on the ground. That is the scale of this. We are not going boots on ground without a long-term commitment. That is a 100% fact. And I think Tony Arterburn would agree with me on this. And I'm sorry if I'm getting a little frustrated with this, but I see where this is going. This is putting our foot in the door because we got out of Afghanistan. We got out of Afghanistan so quickly under Biden, which is a horrible retreat. And I'm going to say that 100%, that was a retreat. Not saying we should be there. We should have done it when Obama was in. We were scaling back, and actually that was part of my mission, was to bring our equipment back and bring our people back in a very managed way. But then Biden did it really quickly. And guess what? All the money dried up. All the money dried up for these freaking contractors. They got paid out to the end of their contract because that's how military contracting works. If I have a 10-year contract with you for $10 billion or whatever it is, and I cancel it at 8 years, for whatever, even if it's just because you didn't do something right or I didn't do something right and there's a breach of contract, they still get paid out. That's how inefficient our government is. But now those contracts are gone. They're gone, baby, gone. So now we need a new war. We need a new something to get these people getting paid again. And if people can't see that, I just don't know what to tell them. That's what war is. War is about making rich people more rich. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop there because I'm going to get really heated with this. I see exactly where this is going. I see it's going to harm the price of goods for you and I, the everyday person, which then in turn makes them want to join the military because it really sucks here to try to earn a living. But the military will put a roof over my head and food in my belly. And there you go. Sorry, Ashley, that just it hits home with me when you talk about war. So
Yeah, I completely understand that, and thank you for your analysis. So, having said that, on that very cheerful note, uh,
I'm so
I
sorry. It's just that's a sore spot with me because
no,
I
no, no.
seen it
It's
firsthand.
the subject matter. It's not what you said. It's the article that I shared. But I want to get final thoughts from. Here we go, Deb. Let's see how I can manage this. I want to get final thoughts from Karen. Then I'm moving to Jason, and I'm going to try to have a nice, seamless final thoughts and just truly make it one. We'll see how it goes. Karen.
Okay. Well, Jason, I think we all agree with you about this and are worried about this, concerned about it. So pray for peace, pray for your loved ones, pray for those who are in harm's way. And try not to get too wrapped up in all of this, and remember to center yourself, ground yourself, do whatever it is that works for you as far as a spiritual practice, and try to still move forward and try to prepare as best you can and live in the moment. None of us is guaranteed anything but the present moment. So don't get too wrapped up in what ifing and worrying about the future. We have today, and we do have power. We do have choices, and it does matter what we think and what we do. So let love live in your heart and look out for each other. Don't forget, that we're human beings, and the golden rule rules in my opinion. So don't forget the golden rule to treat others as you would like to be treated yourself. As things do possibly become more heated, or our choices on options become more limited, it's even more important than ever that we think about others. And that's it.
Alrighty, very well said. Jason, final thoughts on today's episode, messaging, etc.
My final thoughts are this. I just got freaking riled up because I'm thinking about war and what really is the outcome of war besides death. The outcome is people get rich. My final thought today is going to be, take the time to go do something meaningful. That's it.
Very good. Awesome. We can do that in many different ways. We talked about that. So don't forget to catch Tiger Tales tonight. And if you are maybe not feeling a dance party, but you're feeling a movie, check out Doc's Watch Along. Alrighty, I'm going to run through our chat. I want to thank everybody who tuned in today. We, of course, really appreciate you so much taking the time to be live with us. And we also appreciate everyone who takes the time to listen to us after. We know that you're busy, you have a lot going on, and the fact that you take time to spend with us, it means so much to us. We truly appreciate it. We appreciate your feedback, comments, everything. Here we go. White Wolf, Nostradamus, Truth Speaker 1977, Greg Dub 27, Bri Deb Mac, Narrow Way, Narrow Gate, Melanie, Do Not Obey, Spirit of the Age, Harps, LT Oracle of Truth, Salcedo Paranormal, Guard Goldsmith, Carl and Hanny, Billy Ray Valentine, Ronnie Omelets, I Handy, Doc Spoiler, Slick Licks, Mia Ginidi, I don't know. I think that was the one that Hiker was saying was a spam. Hiker Emoji, Will Tabox, TK2 Beyond, Misfit 1904, Mr. Tom Cooper, Nature Boy Dave, Skunk Hollow Rose Gardens, Yona, Aniwodi, and my apologies if I butchered the pronunciation there, Yona, Denver Attaway, Skull Spotter, Angry Tiger, Little John, A Dingo Ate Me Baby, Radio Sack, I Toke, and No Things. And because Jason was keeping up with our chat list today, if I missed anyone, don't forget, blame Jason. And having said that, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. I hope that everyone has an amazing rest of your weekend. We'll see some of you later in the chat. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.
God bless.
Oh, and thank you, Jason and Karen. Yes, thank you for your contribution and input today.
All right.
Fighting Tyranny. You're listening to Knights of the Storm.